So welcome to this Great Grades Maths video, and this is part of Module 1 using numbers, and you're viewing Part 1 types of number. And so in this video, what we're going to look at is, first of all, we're going to look at integers and what they are, and we'll specifically look at how we can find the place value of all the different digits of a number. And then following that, we'll look at powers and how we can do maths power numbers. So let's look at integers first of all. What are integers? Well, integers are any whole number. So for instance, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 1,000, and any other whole number. And if we think about any integer or any whole number, we can assign the place value of every different digit of that number. So, for instance, if we look at the number 125, we can say that the 5 represents all the units, the 2 represents all the tens, and the 1 represents all the hundreds. So we have 100, 2 tens, and 5 units. But what about if we look at a bigger number, say for instance 259,000? How could we assign the place value of these digits? Well, we already have the units, the tens and the hundreds, but we also have 9 thousands, 5 tens of thousands, and 2 hundreds of thousands. Well, now let's look at square numbers. What are square numbers? Well, a squared number is a number which is multiplied by itself just once. And we write square numbers in this form, with the number in front represented here by the x, with a little 2 in front of it that looks like it's hanging in midair. And we say this as x squared. So for instance, if we were to think about the number 2, we would write it in this form, 2 squared. And what this means is it means that the number 2 is multiplied by itself just once. So we'd write it as 2 times 2, which of course is equal to 4. Notice that we have the 2 in front in midair, the squared part, and that tells us that the number 2 appears in the calculation twice. So what if we were to calculate what 5 squared was? How would we write this out? Well, again, the number 5 would appear twice in the calculation, so we'd write it as 5 times 5, which is equal to 25. Well, let's look at cube numbers now. What are cube numbers? Well, cube numbers are in fact similar to squared numbers. And a cube number is a number which is multiplied by itself twice. And we write it as x cubed with this little 3 that's hanging in midair. So if we were to write out 2 cubed, we'd write it out as 2 times 2 times 2. So notice that the 3 in front of the 2, the cubed part, again tells us how many times the 2 appears in the calculation. So we have 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2 is 8. But how would we write out, for instance, 4 cubed? Well, again, that would be 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. So let's look at powers now then. And powers are related to square and to cube numbers. And that's because they are multiplied by themselves a certain number of times. And they're written as shown here as x to the power of y. And what this means is that x, the number x, is multiplied by itself a y number of times. So for instance, if we wanted to work out what 2 to the power of 4 was, we'd write it out as follows. And notice that we have the 4 in front of the 2, and the little 4 means that the number 2 appears in the calculation 4 times. So we have 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8, times another 2, which is 16. So the final answer of 2 to the power of 4 is 16. But what if we wanted to calculate now 3 to the power of 5? Well, again, the little 5 in front of the 3 that's hovering in midair the power part, that means that the number 3 appears in the calculation 5 times. So we'd do 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And if we do the maths, that's equal to 243. Now the power part of the number, which is the small number that's in front of the large number that's hanging in midair, we call this number the index. And it's important that we know what the index is, because when we come to doing maths with powers, it's vital that we can identify which is the index. So first of all, let's look at how we can multiply powers together. So when we're multiplying power numbers, all we have to do is we have to add the indexes together. So let's try to do this example, 4 cubed times 4 squared. How do we do that? Well, all we have to do, we said, is to add the indexes together. So we have 3 plus 2, which gives us 5. So the answer is 4 to the power of 5. So notice that when we do the calculation, all we do is we add the powers together. We leave the large number in front of both of these numbers alone. This number is called the base number, and we don't do anything with this number. All we do is we add the indexes together. Well, that's multiplying powers. How can we divide powers? Well, when we're dividing powers, all we do is we subtract the indexes. So, if we wanted to do this division, 5 to the power of 6 divided by 5 squared, all we'd have to do is subtract the different indexes together. So 6 minus 2, that gives us 4. So the answer is 5 to the power of 4. And again, notice that we don't do anything to the base number, we just simply subtract one of the indexes from the other to get the final answer. So there are certain things that you must learn about cube numbers, squared numbers and powers that will really help you to answer some questions in the exam. So for instance, you're expected to know what all of the squared numbers are from 1 to 10. So you must know that 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, that 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, and that 10 squared is 100. You're also expected to know what all of the cube numbers are from 2 to 5 and also 10. So notice that you're expected to know less cube numbers, and this is because they're harder to work out. But you must know these, that 2 cubed is 8, 3 cubed is 27, 4 cubed is 64, 5 cubed is 125, and that 10 cubed is equal to 1000. Now if you find that you cannot memorize all of these, then it's really important that you know how to calculate them. Well, thanks for watching this Great Grades Maths video. For more videos, please visit greatgradestuition.com.